Hi, my name is Mary Wong, and I am a registered traditional Chinese medicine practitioner and founder of Alive Holistic Health, author of the book Pathways to Pregnancy. I want to thank you for joining me for my live post number 63, which I am doing off the cuff for you this evening because, well, guess what? There's, like everybody else, there's a lot going on. And I have to say that when I was at work, there was a moment of giving up and not doing the post this evening. And in the end, I decided to do so. And I'll tell you first why I was going to give it up. Well, I had an idea of what I was going to do, but having been so busy all week, I haven't had a chance to fully compile my ideas together. And so one of my colleagues, Tanya Smith, and as well as my admin staff, Sue, says, you know, last post number 62, I was talking about saying no and being powerful about it and saying yes to yourself. And she says, why don't you just take your own advice and say yes to yourself by saying no to doing your live posts? So I thought, you know what, that is very plausible. And I thought, you know, really, what am I up to in life? Well, I am committed to making a difference with you. And I am also committed to saying yes to me and have self-preservation. And I did not want to feel bad, like I was putting, what's the word I was going to say? Well, I just didn't want to let you down because I know that there's viewers out there that are watching my posts every week. And I thought, I can actually do this without having to stress myself out. Like, who says that I need to research and study and make it perfect? I can speak off the cuff and from my heart and knowing from my experience what I deal with every single day. And I think that would be enough to make a difference for you this evening. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. And so that means I'm literally going to talk to you about my day and what has transpired. And really what it is that there is upset. I deal with upset every single day. For example, a person called me today in tears, speaking to my staff, and she was desperate to talk to me. So I called her back, and I kind of knew what was going on because she was a single woman trying to conceive. And when you're single trying to conceive, either you hit the bar and just, you know, trick a fellow into bed, or now there is opportunity in the way of science by getting sperm donor. And in that, you can either do an insemination at a fertility clinic, or because she has done it a couple of times, she thought, and with the doctor's thoughts, was upping the ante by using IVF, in vitro fertilization. So here she was doing it all on her own, and it costs a whack of money, you know, typically over 10 grand, maybe even closer to 20 these days, including the medical drugs, right? So you're setting yourself up financially, you're setting yourself up emotionally, you're even like trying to align your life and work so that you can do this in vitro process. And what happened? She was put on the pill for several weeks, and then she goes in on the 3rd day of her menstrual cycle. And when they looked at the ultrasound, this imaging to see how many potential eggs developing in follicles, so they say antral follicle count, when they look at it as a baseline, they want to see a whack of eggs, the whack of follicles, because that's what they would be stimulating for the IVF. And in IVF, the goal is to try to grow as many follicles, eggs contained within, trying to grow them as much as you can, and then you retrieve these follicles after typically about 10 days of stimulation. But when she went in to get that first ultrasound, she was really devastated and upset because the doctor said, wow, your antral follicle count has gone down dramatically from 8 months ago. So the immediate response is, oh my goodness, I am getting older, my eggs are getting older, and this is the beginning of the end. And that's exactly how she felt. And hence the upset. And the second piece of the upset was that the doctor said, you know what, this is not a good cycle, so let's cancel it. So from the outside looking in, it does look detrimental, but I can share with you that in the reality of it all, it actually isn't so bad. It sounds bad, and the facts sound bad, but again, we need to look at not just a linear way of thinking, but what else is going on. So here's the deal. She was given the oral contraceptive pill, the birth control pill, for, I don't have her file with me, so I'm just gonna, again, say it off the cuff. I think she was on the pill for at least a good couple of weeks, maybe 3 weeks, right? So the point of it is, this is a specific call, this protocol, a long protocol, where you want to kind of, to put it in like an analogy, it's like you're putting the ovaries to sleep so that when it comes time to stimulating the eggs within the follicles, you will tend to grow and develop these follicles at the same rate. Because in natural ovulatory cycles, what happens is you may have a whack of eggs sitting there in follicles, but there's one lead follicle. So that's what develops, and that's what gets ovulated. Well, in IVF, they don't want that to happen. They don't want to just retrieve one egg. They want to retrieve as many as they can. So they want to kind of put those little follicles to sleep so that by the time they give you stimulation drugs, then you will develop these follicles at the same rate so that there's no lead. So for example, if there's 11 follicles, they want to try to retrieve 11 follicles rather than the one that would naturally be ovulated without drugs. So the point is, her system was being shut down so that the hope is that when she starts the stimulation drugs, then they would all go. Well, here's the fact. She goes in on the 3rd day after she stops the pill, after she gets some bleeding, and the antral follicle count, instead of being at 11, which was what it was, and maybe in the past it was even more than that, but this time around there was 6. So she's devastated because it looks a lot less than what she would normally have. And the first thing that one would think is, oh my goodness, the numbers are going down because within these last couple of months, perhaps I am aging. And literally this is the beginning of the end. And what the truth is that's not really what it is. And this is not total fact, but I've seen this enough where 2 things. 1, antral follicle count can shift from one menstrual cycle to the next. So I've seen it where one is very high and then literally the next month is low, and then the next month again it's higher. So it does not mean it's the beginning of the end. And secondly, I propose what is even more plausible is that by taking the birth control pill, by the time she reached the ultrasound for that follicle count on day 3 of her cycle, see, what happens is it's seen by the naked eye by a lab tech. So the ultrasound technician is by eye looking at the ultrasound, looking and in search for these follicles. Well, if these follicles have been sleeping and they're like shut down, sometimes the ones that are coming in are smaller and not visible to the human eye. So it might not be that she has less number of follicles in this cycle. It actually can mean, very likely, that they were too small to be seen. So the numbers might still be there, the same, but they were suppressed so much that you can't see them. And so the doctor's call was not incorrect. Again, upsetting, because you're anticipating and you've like changed your life around for this, and you have this expectation and this hope that this time's going to work because your eyes have not worked, right? So what we need to do is gain perspective and see that, wow, this doctor actually has made a good choice, because if there are less to start off with and they're not at the size that it's even visible, then why should we start stimulation drugs? Perhaps this is not the best cycle. So let's wait for another cycle. So can you see that instead of seeing this upset like it's the beginning or the end, can you see that it's like, oh, it actually might serve me better? So we're like turning and shifting our mindset, our perspective of the same scenario. Does that make sense? And so what you want to see is that you want to shift your mindset around your upset, and know that oftentimes what we think is a reality may not be the truth, may not be really what's happening in life. And that goes for anything and any upset in our lives. And so in this scenario, again, she was over suppressed. So now I'm going to bring in my own personal story. When I was given the oral contraceptive pill for my first in vitro fertilization, attempted, that's exactly what happened. So instead of the doctor canceling the cycle, because he had never seen my antral follicle count anyway, I have blocked tubes, so I didn't even have a privilege of trying inseminations. So they had to go straight to IVF. And when they did the IVF, this is all they knew. So we ended up starting the drug protocol, and I did a whole whack of drugs, like a lot. And we did almost a course of 10 days and not much was happening. So I was being bombarded by all these drugs and nothing was growing. And in the very end, they canceled the cycle. So to me, going back to this other woman, this doctor actually gave her, it was a better idea, having the insight that she was over suppressed. And so maybe they should use a different protocol and not use the birth control pill, so that in hopes that the next cycle they can actually use it, the stimulation drugs differently, so that she can stimulate. So I hope that makes sense. And you know, I have two other people today. One is in the middle of an IVF and her numbers were lower. And again, I think she was a bit suppressed because they're not growing after about 9 days of stimulation drugs. So what you know, she's in the middle of an IVF cycle. So what are we doing? At our clinic, when people are having low numbers or like slow growing. So mine was completely shut down. It wasn't growing at all. But this woman is growing slowly. So what we're doing is we're increasing acupuncture to increase the blood volume going to her ovaries, so that the drugs get there and that there's more what I call juiciness going into her ovaries, so that potentially the eggs will grow and sizably, so that she can have a retrieval versus having to cancel it. And I'll keep my fingers crossed so that it doesn't get canceled, because they're going to look at it in 2 days. And I have a third person who was in that predicament, and we did 2 acupuncture sessions 2 days in a row, and within the 2 days they found 2 more follicles growing. They found that the follicles were growing. So there's more that they found after 2 days in a row of acupuncture. And so the numbers increased, and then the sizes actually increased. So in her case, they're not going to cancel the cycle. So that's good. So these are all different scenarios, all causing upset, but there are ways to get around it. And so even for you, no matter what you're experiencing in life, you know, whatever the doctor says to you, there may be things that we can do to help it. And at home, what I can see that you can do at home is to be able to, hi Sandra for showing up, is to, you know, look at our upset and ways to deal with it. So the very first thing that you want to do is, whatever that upset is, typically due to whatever a doctor says to you or even your spouse, you take what they say and you acknowledge it. You can acknowledge the upset, but yet you can actually look at it and go back, because likely you'll be reactionary. So it's like often when you walk away that you can reevaluate what occurs. So you walk away from the upset and you reevaluate and say, is this the truth? What this person says to me, is this the truth? Or is this just an opinion? 99% of the time, it's an opinion, it's not fact. But we take these opinions as facts and it causes upset. And now, second piece is, where does that upset land in your body? Well, I close my eyes and oh gee, I feel like constriction in my chest or tightness in the shoulder. And that kind of upset, really what it instigates is that whole fight or flight response. It's that like survival mode. And what happens then is that then there's less energy going to where we want it to go, into our reproductive organs. So if that's the case, and you know that to be there, then what we want to do is, okay, acknowledge where it is, our upset, breathe into it. So you would close your eyes literally. You might want to like close yourself off, go to a bathroom if you're at the office or, you know, wherever you need to go, a little quiet space. And you close your eyes, you notice where the constriction, where the upset is, breathe into it, and then say something to yourself like, let it go. Let it go. Let it go. Or one word is release. Release. And you repeat this word, release, until you feel yourself calming a little bit more. And as you do this exercise repeatedly, it's really helpful. And then, so that's two things, right? To acknowledge the upset, know where it is in the body, and then say release. And then the very fourth thing I want you to do is then say to yourself, who am I today as I go through this? Because that will help to shift our mental attitude. So who am I? So for me, I am courageous. And certainly going through fertility, it requires a lot of courage. And even in the depths of our despair, know that we are courageous because we are going through it. So even when you're, and by the way, upset and tears and anger is not in any way, shape, or form weakness. And a lot of people, a lot of women that I see, and myself included, we start assessing ourselves or judging ourselves to be weak when we're upset. And I say, no, I think it's good to acknowledge where we're at emotionally. That's not being weak. That is being able to be vulnerable, and we can have power in our vulnerability. So own it and just be with it and add love. So back to, who am I right now? I am courageous. I am loving. And I like to say I am unstoppable. So no matter what the upset is, you can create 3 words for yourself. What rings true for you? For some, you know, if you tend to be anxious, you might say calm. I am calm to get me through this, right? So, you know, you can share with me what word works for you. And this is a mantra that you can say to yourself. So I do this when I'm upset. So I'm going to give you another tip. So instead of waiting for your upset in the day, how about you actually anticipate an upset in the beginning of the day? When you wake up, it's like, today, what is going to trip me up? And you say to yourself, it could be that, you know, this doctor I'm going to see today, he might upset me. So anticipate it. And then talk to yourself and say, how am I going to react with it and respond to it? So that's a really great thing. And then second, going back to the, who am I today? And pick 3 words. Words that rings true for you. This is how I see myself. This is who I want to be. And this is how I want others to see me. Sometimes, by the way, those 3 words that how you want others to see you might be different words than how you want to see yourself. So, but let's start simply. Who do I want to be? How do I want myself to be seen, right? So how am I going to show up in my life? And I'm going to use these words, and this is how I'm going to show up. So use that. So I encourage you to do this every single day. Please, this is awesome. I learned this from Brendan Bouchard, who has this, what is it called? I forget. It doesn't matter. Anyway, High Performance Academy, something like that. And I think it's really awesome. And I took it to heart, and I literally do this every day. In fact, I put my 3 words in my cell phone. So on my alarm every day at 10 o'clock in the morning, it's set. So when it rings, I see my 3 words. So my 3 words currently is loving, unstoppable, and courageous. And how I remember that too is LUC, luck. There you have it. So those are my secret tips for today. Hope that will serve you. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope that you get something out of this. And I want to do a last minute thing. I want to tell you that really, really cool, starting tomorrow, not my printed book, Pathways to Pregnancy, but I have an ebook version, and I believe on Amazon it's going to go on sale because it's fall, and there's a fallout sale, blowout sale, and so you can get it for $4.99. So really check it out. There's more of what I've been saying here, way more in my book, and certainly other people's pathways, stories to pregnancy, and lots of practical advice, tips for you. So join me next Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I look forward to seeing you here. And I'm so glad I did not cancel my co-host, because I was gonna, but I'm committed to you. This is what I do, and I just have to tell you, I did wolf down my dinner, but that's okay, because I'm here with you. Thank you. I'll see you next Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Take care. Bye.